it just kind of came together a bit more naturally rather than one point that you were just going, oh yeah, that's me now. I'm like,
It wasn't like the
again,
heavens opened up and it was like, blah, the sun came down. Yeah.
No. But when when I was working with Marie, we used to go to the Cairo Europe, which we saw you at a few times. Well,
yes.
So that really opened your eyes then, and you were able to speak to loads of chiropractors that actually practice that way, and that, you know, it can work, and it obviously works really well. But, you know, whenever things are new and different, you're a bit afraid of changing things. And so that was lovely. That was probably one of the pinpoints actually that changed.
That helped change that.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Informed Chiropractor. This is Dr. Don MacDonald, your host, and today I'm heading to Northern Ireland to interview our next guest. We've met her, I think it's been probably about 3 or 4 years that we've known her, I'm pretty sure. And she's been to quite a few of our events when we've been over in England, UK, and we're in Dublin. And she's also in our Informed Chiropractic group. She loves looking after kids. She graduated from the Welsh Institute of Chiropractic in 2008 and opened her practice. She loves looking after animals, dogs, and horses, which those guys I'm scared of because I'm a big guy. I'm usually scared of anything bigger than me. So good job on adjusting horses, but I do love looking after dogs. After we were looking after our dog Lux for many years before he just recently passed. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Emir Lervy to our podcast. Welcome.
Hi.
So how, I know you went to Welsh Chiropractic or Institute of Chiropractic, and did you grew up in Ireland? Is that where you grew up?
Yeah. Where I work now is about 5 miles from where I grew up. So
well, so it's all close. You're all close to where you grew up. So what kind of interested you in chiropractic in the very first place?
Well, I grew up in chiropractic. So my mum and dad eventually then saw a chiropractor from when I was a child. So I was kind of always in it, and for years didn't really understand why I went. We just all went, like we went to the dentist, you know, and only whenever I started picking my subjects and things at school, I thought I always wanted to be a nurse. Mum was a nurse, and then briefly wanted to be a vet, and then decided I didn't want to work outside. And at the time, we were just, every time we went up, I was quizzing the chiropractor that we saw, you know, what's happening and what are you doing? And, you know, just got more interested in it, and that it went from there really. So I just saw the difference it made with Mum at the time. Had really bad sciatica, I suppose it was, but she was a nurse and had to give up work because of it. And there was like 3 young kids at home, and so it changed her life for the better. And as she said, she never looked back from that minute that she went first, you know, that she went and saw the improvements and didn't have to take any drugs or, you know, go to surgery or anything like that. And funnily, the reason we all started getting adjusted, my brother had a really bad birth and never slept. So he was about 2 at this point whenever Mum was going to the chiropractor. And he just said, look, take him in for a check. The worst that can happen is nothing changes, you know, just see what can happen. And at the time, Mum just hadn't even thought of it. You know, he was just a baby that didn't sleep, but she just had to get on with it. And he got adjusted and he slept, so the rest of us were booked in. And we went from there. So it was a lovely way around, but I always liked the idea of being able to help people. When I was younger, I didn't know how that was going to go, but it came round eventually that that's where I ended up, and I honestly couldn't think of doing anything else now, you know, really.
Yeah, once you're in it,
profession.
You enjoy it, right? So it's just nice. It's kind of like our purpose. So it's kind of like kind of what we do. I always laugh because when we travel to teach seminars, and all my practice members are like, "Geez, do you ever just go away for fun?" And I'm like, "Well, it is fun. Like this profession is fun.
Yeah.
This is what I do for fun."
Yeah.
So you kind of come right out of high school, and then did you decide, okay, I'm for sure going to chiropractic school right away, or was it? Yeah, it was right away.
Oh yeah, I knew from earlier than that was the path. We go straight from school and go straight into university. So straight in.
And so how did you pick the Welsh Institute of Chiropractic? How did you pick that as your place?
It was only here at the time. There was only a private university in Bournemouth, and the Welsh Institute of Chiropractic was the UCAS one, you know, the government one. So that's the only reason I went there. And that was the choice. We didn't have the funds to go to private university, so
Yeah.
we went there. So it was great. But I think there's quite a few different ones now in the UK. But yeah, but it's close enough. There's none in Ireland yet, but that was the closest we could go.
That was the closest you could go. So as far as like kind of the spectrum of chiropractic on the, kind of more of the mechanistic pain-based side, all the way to the more the vitalistic, like help you optimize function side. What was your knowledge going into school on that range?
So I would have said I was very vitalistic going into university, and then forgot it for a couple of years, and then relearned it when I came out. So Mum then, whenever she gave up nursing and retrained as a complementary therapist. So growing up, even without chiropractic, everything was, it was all about holism and trying to correct yourself and, all of that. So we had that going before I even went to university. But then whenever you're there, you're trying to learn everything, and you're trying to learn, anatomy and the physiology. It's very hard to stay vitalistic at that point.
Yeah.
And then I just relearned it again when I came out. Yeah.
Now, when you relearned it, did it take a while? Like, so when you graduated, did you open your practice right away, or
probably took me a few years? Well, I went to work for somebody else in Cardiff, so we stayed in Wales for a few years, and then we had our wee son, and that's what provoked us to come back to Ireland again. So we came back here. But yeah, I was very mechanistic for a few years. Just because it's in your head, isn't it? You're going, right, I have to check all these things, and it's this, we have to make a diagnosis, and this is how we treat it, and and then you get out of that again. Yeah.
So when you moved back to Ireland, did you open your current place? Like, did you open from scratch?
Yes. So not where we are at the minute, but I opened in Mum's place. She has a lovely wee place by her house that was our old shed, that she has her complementary therapies in. So I worked from there for a few years, and then worked with Dr. Marie McElhinney in Derry for a few years as well. So I was kind of working there and home at the same time, and then made the decision in 2019 to just go for myself, and then lockdown happened and the whole place went crazy, and then we opened here. It was lovely again. But it was a wee bump there in the middle, but no, it's been brilliant since we've moved down here and flourishing, which is great.
Excellent. Now, when you were in those first couple of years of practice, and then you're kind of in that mechanistic mindset, was there anything that kind of helped to trigger you to kind of move a little bit more to that vitalistic or optimized function? Or was it just that you remember it in practice? You remember how it used to be?
Yeah, I think I was obsessed with learning stuff when I came out of university. So I found it really hard to just come out and then not do nothing. Like, I always felt like I had to be reading something or listen to loads of podcasts. We've been listening to yourself and Brandy for years before we did any of the courses things. And I think it was more reading about that. At the chiropractor that we went, and I still see now, Dr. Kevin Proudman told me to read the green books. So he gave me a few of the green books to read, and he said, look, just read these and it'll make sense, or whatever. And I was like, kind of they're great, but they're just so hard to read. And I was like, oh, these are like fab. But it was just all of that kind of came together.
Yeah.
And then, I think it just kind of came together a bit more naturally, rather than one point that you were just going, oh yeah, that's me now. I'm like,
it wasn't like the heavens opened up and it was like, blah, the sun came down. Yeah.
No. But when I was working with Marie, we used to go to the Chiro Europe, which we saw you at a few times. Well,
yes.
So that really opened your eyes then, and you were able to speak to loads of chiropractors that actually practice that way, and that, it can work, and it obviously works really well. But, whenever things are really different, you're a bit afraid of changing things. And so that was lovely. That was probably one of the pinpoints actually that changed.
That helped change that.
Yeah.
Now, I was just, like I said, just before, I was just double checking your website, and then I remembered that you see animals too. So horses and dogs. How did that come to be?
Well, this is why I was giggling about the vet part, because I love animals, but always was going to do it. But I thought, I'll just work for a while first, And then the course came up again, and it was over in England. We did that. It's not a long course, but it's quite intense, as in learning the anatomy, that obviously a bit different from humans, but it's similar, but it's different, and it's learning all the different moves and things like that. But it's really fun. It's harder, I suppose, physically to adjust. Dogs are fine. Horses are harder physically to adjust because you need just a bit more muscle even to lift legs and things like that.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the polyvagal theory, animals get it. Like you adjust them and they yawn and stretch and lie down and sleep, and you're going, well, if humans did that, this would make, this would work really, really well. So the animals are really fun. It's just a bit trickier than humans because you're not in your clinic as such. The dogs come to the clinic, but horses you go out too. So it takes a wee bit more time and, a bit more organization, but it is really fun.
So when you organize it in your schedule, is there like a certain days that you see animals, or do you kind of mix it? So how does your schedule work as far as in clinic with your people and then your animals?
I changed it recently to, I now work 3 days humans in the clinic, and then I work the Thursday is animal day, and then the Friday is my out day, I'll call it, where there's a few places I go, like I go to local school and see all the teachers. That's on 1 day a month, and so I have a couple of those scheduled in as well. So the Thursdays are normally animal day.
Oh, that's good. So on a Fridays you actually go out and go to a school and adjust the teachers?
Yes, there's a wee school, a special school near us that I run. We had a few people came to us as clients or as patients, and the lady was like jokingly saying, like, there's so many of us coming now, you could nearly come to us. I'm like, well, I can, if you want me to, we can. So they have, because it's not a mainstream school, they have a wee therapy room, so they do therapy for the kids. Now, I haven't seen any of the kids yet, but there's about 50 teachers there. So once a month I go up to them, and they don't all come every time, but a good majority of them come. We have a good fun day of adjusting and then go home again. So it's lovely. It's a nice wee mix.
It's such a good idea though to be able to just go out to them, because if they're all going to see you anyway, you might as well just be there, right? So awesome. Now, talking a little bit about the polyvagal theory, you've kind of been in our group and gone to a couple of our technique seminars, and I was just curious, what are some of the things that you've kind of taken from the polyvagal theory that have, because like I find with a lot of chiropractors, one is personally like understanding yourself and how yourself runs, and then also practice, and then linking it through chiropractic principles. So what are some of the things that you've kind of taken from those learnings?
Well, it's changed because we've done both with you now. So we did the original one, or the one in Dublin, and then in Windsor. So I kind of took different things from both, if that makes sense. So I've always loved the idea of the, we used to call it like the fight or flight versus the rest and repair. And that's how I've always talked about chiropractic, rather than, this joint is out of place or that kind of thing, even when we were more mechanistic at the start.
Right.
But after the first one, I found the language better, so I could explain to people better what was happening, rather than, we're not trying to just take you out of fight or flight. We want you just to be more resilient and able to, work with the environment, because the stress is there, and we're going to have to, that's not going to go away. So we have to figure out how to work with it. And obviously some of the techniques that we learned on that first one was fab as well. I think I just came away from the first one with so much information in my brain going, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in a good way, so it took me a couple of weeks to process the different things.
Yes.
But I suppose the second one, I love the diaphragm viscera stuff, which I was kind of doing a little bit, but with no protocol, what I mean? So I'd always check the diaphragm, and I would check I love ribs and first rib, because I think nearly everyone that comes are tight there, whether it's working at the computer or stress or. So a lot of the anterior rib and shoulder stuff I love, like not even the adjusting, just the gentle stretch and release things, and the visceral stuff, so that's really cool. And then the cranial and occiput stuff that we learned on the first one was fab as well, because we were taught how to adjust the occiput. This is going to sound really silly on a podcast for chiropractors. So I've always adjusted the cervicals, activated the occiput, because I never felt like I could adjust it properly. And then on the first one in Dublin, you showed us, the different just lines of drive. And I think this makes sense. Why didn't no one else show us like this before? And I was able to do it without annoying the person too much. So that was lovely. And then obviously in Dublin, the laugh was that we had a good old, the pelvis, and seeing how to assess the pelvis properly in males and females to know how to adjust it, which is great, and because we have a lot of like just manual workers, so I see a lot of hip, a lot of shoulder stuff as well as spinal stuff, so it's lovely to be able to release the hip and the knees and be able to stretch that out as well, which is great.
Well, and I'll say this will be kind of a side joke because we'll know this and we won't have to say exactly what Brandy said, but we were in Windsor and we were talking about the protected pelvis, and so we just had some female chiropractors might feel uncomfortable working in around the hip flexor, the pubic bone, the femur head, and so Brandy had yelled to get a male to be on the table so that we could just the females could practice. And it actually probably work good the opposite way too if we're working on anterior ribs for men to practice on female chiropractors, so that you just know how to be like certain, explain what you're doing, and then just be a little bit more comfortable and confident going in there. Because if you explain everything that you're going to do, explain why you're doing it, go in just confidently and do it, and then just get out, and then they feel the difference afterwards, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so sometimes you just make too much of an issue of things, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, totally.
That's funny. And so, and personally, did you just understanding some of the things with the states and the polyvagal theory, has that helped you at all, like kind of understand even yourself with stress, or when you are seeing different people come in different states?
Oh, yeah. A lot of us, we don't realize ourselves what we're holding until you until you go to courses and find different things. And so it's helped me recognize when I am getting overwhelmed, I will call it, rather than stress. So I get to a point where I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed. And then if I don't sort something, whether that's an adjustment, or for me, sometimes it's just getting outside and getting out in the water or something like that, will that bring me down as well? Then symptoms appear after that. So I can confidently say to people that this happens to me too. This is how I do it. This is it. Just keep a wee eye out for these symptoms, or not symptoms, even signs that your body is getting overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And every time people are like, oh yeah, I know the shoulder thing, they laugh and go, I'll give you my shoulders up my ears. And I'm like, well, that's when it's been there for a while. Let's think about things that happened before that. And I'm like, do you ever get like shouty at the kids or people, and like people eating beside you annoy you? And I'm like, that's it. So it's having those wee things where you can say to people, look, this is your body getting a little bit overwhelmed. Not necessarily do these things, but they're getting adjusted anyway. They're coming right. Most people that come to see me are quite good at the regular upkeep afterwards. Mm. So it's finding wee points throughout the day that they can take their body back into that calm state again. And sometimes it's just having a cup of warm tea that you're appreciating. You have warm tea, just for a minute by themselves, because people think here they have to go to a retreat for the day, or they have to do all these big things, and it doesn't have to be. So it's teaching them that it's okay to be stressed as long as they don't sit in it all the time. Just come out of it for a little bit, and then you're more resilient to go and do your do whatever it is you have to do after that. So it's been nice to see different patterns, I suppose, in people.
100%. Yeah, because I always say too, it's that regulation, dysregulation, and because the world's crazy, especially post COVID and like politically and around the world, there's so much things to stress about. Telling people you're never not going to be stressed or dysregulated is unrealistic, but it's about how quickly, like that resilience is how quickly we get back into a regulated state. So I always like to ask this question. Now you've been in practice for a while. Is there any words of advice you'd like to give your younger self? Like, say, go back to when you're a chiropractic school or in that first year of practice. Is there anything that you would you'd give as advice
to my younger self?
Yes,
I would probably say that it actually it'll all work eventually. When you get out first and you just think, am I even doing the right thing, or is people going to listen, or and just have a bit more confidence in myself, and say, where you can confidently say to people, I know this is going to work. It's worked for everybody else. It will work for you too, and probably relax more and not get as stressed, really trying to learn everything and read about everything. And, all of that at the start, I thought if I study more, do more courses and do more things, that'll, I don't know, make it better, so it is probably just having more confidence and just have a wee relax and have more fun doing things outside of chiropractic as well, so you can enjoy being in work and doing chiropractic more, so that would probably be my main tips.
main tips. That's good. Like it's true though. It's like trying to keep it sustainable, right? Because like long term in practice, you still want to keep a little bit of a balance. I do find too, a lot of people, especially chiropractors, want to like not implement anything new until they've learned every single thing about it, and then that it actually never happens that you'll ever learn everything about it. That's the problem about knowledge. It's like a black hole, right? The more you learn, the more you know you don't know. So applied knowledge is the best, right? Applying it and then seeing how it works through your life, and then getting feedback, and tweaking it and adjusting it,
and not being afraid to try it either. I think that's what happened at the start. As you say, you want to learn everything and go, I'll make sure I'm perfect at this before I try it on anybody. And then, as you say, you never do it. So it's just trying wee bits and saying, oh, that actually works. So that works. So that works for that kind of person and not that person, and
well, and I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about like kind of lacing that polyvagal theory through chiropractic principles is that if you know that base neurological safety is what our target is, just like in the green books would be ease, like they say ease in the nervous system. That gives you a lot of grace to be creative and try new things, because if you have that at the top of your mind, you're usually always going to be okay. Like if you're always trying to create safety in the nervous system, or you're always trying to create ease in the physiology, or put safety just in general when you're having interactions with your practice members, like you really can't go wrong, right? So that's kind of that's a nice principle to give you permission to be able to try a few things before you get a PhD and everything.
Yeah.
Now we have chiropractors on their way to work or at the gym. I always like to ask you, what kind of words of wisdom would you like to share with the listeners today, or things that inspire you when you're working out or listening to a podcast or going to work?
You know what I love doing is, just cliche as this sounds, with chiropractic, is about being in present time. Just being outside and listening to the birds. Or at the minute, we've got glorious weather in Ireland, which doesn't normally happen in March, but we've had sunshine and the daffodils are out and the birds are singing again, so my words of wisdom is probably just get out there and embrace nature a little bit, and just be for a minute.
Be for a minute.
And try not get out of your head for a minute. Be for a minute.
Right, just be present. Well, and again, that's the whole goal with being present in your body, being present with your environment, because there's always no stress in the present time moment. So I think there is a reason that is one of the principles that everyone talks about in chiropractic, is because whether you're in your life or whether you're adjusting someone, whether you're in a relationship, spending time with someone you love, like that's a pretty important thing, because the worst thing we can be is always being in our head, where we're kind of like drifting off in the clouds and not being present to the ever-changing environment. So thank you very much for taking the time away from your beautiful sunny days. We're not quite nice yet outside. It snowed last night, but we're just, I think we're at +1 Celsius today. So it's tolerable, but we have a ways to go before spring comes.
Yeah, I'd say, or it'll probably snow tomorrow. You never know here.
Yes, totally. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast, and everyone else listening. Hope you guys are all doing wonderful. Got some good points, inspiration from our episode today. Just an announcement: we are coming to Amsterdam the first weekend of September. We'll be sharing some information on what event we're going to be putting on there and how you can attend. But until the next time, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again in a couple.